Milan, it's actually neat because you hear all about it in the mission. But Milan was actually first introduced to missionary work by Lorenzo Snow. In our mission, Lorenzo Snow went to the city of Genova, and he went up near Torino, and he actually dedicated the land back in the 1850s, so a long time ago. And it's one of the early places where the church, where missionary work started. But it didn't take off right away, and because the religious climate is obviously very Catholic. But the church is fantastic there in Italy, especially in the Milan mission. When I showed up in the mission, there were 5 stakes and 2 districts, and by the time I left, we had all stakes in our mission, which was fantastic. I had the opportunity to see a stake get dedicated, which was so neat, because these members work so hard, and they just want the church to grow so bad, and it is, and it's so neat to see those fruits. The Florence stake was organized when I was there, which was great because I had the opportunity to serve in Florence and loved every minute of it. And it was so fantastic to see the smiles on all the members' faces and see how much it meant to them to see that their work paid off. And I think it's something that a lot of times we don't appreciate here in the States, like because the stake's made and reorganized all the time. But there in Italy, it's a big deal because it means that they're more prepared to establish Zion. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're establishing Zion. They're getting ready for a temple in Rome, which is fantastic. And every member in Italy will talk to you about the temple in Rome and how excited they are to go there. Which is funny because a lot of them live really close to Switzerland and live like an hour away from the Swiss temple. But to have a temple in your home country means a lot to them. And that's kind of like a main point that they always talk about, the Italians. And it's great because it gives them a goal to work towards, and they're excited for it. I know I had one branch that the church building, this was in Piacenza, it's this small town in Italy, and the church building was above like a department store. And it was just like this office up above the department store, tiny. But everyone knew where it was. Everyone knew that the Mormon church was in the middle of downtown Piacenza above this department store. And every Sunday we had about 20 people there. So it was unique because you got 20 people, no air conditioning, so it's really hot in the church building. And we had this neat little like pipe organ, this pump organ. And it was just a unique experience. You felt like it was like you're with your family worshiping, you know? Because everyone knows everyone, and they've known each other for years, and they've gone to church on Sunday with these same people. And it's a neat environment. I also had the chance to serve in Como, in Lake Como. And there the church is pretty well established. They have 2 wards there, which is amazing for an Italian city. And what's cool there is that the church building used to be the summer home, the villa of the Pope. And so it's like a mansion. From the outside, it looks like a mansion. It's got a fantastic view of the lake and everything. And there's still like a statue of the Virgin Mary outside. So it's interesting. You walk, but like right when you walk in the door, you know it's an LDS church because everything's LDS. Like you see the hymn books, you see it's all the same, and it's just a great testimony that like the church is the same wherever you go. There's different things and there's different people, but the gospel is the same and it doesn't change. So I started out in Alessandria, which was in Piemonte. It's near Torino, up in the north, and then I went to Piacenza, a little south of Milano. And then I had the wonderful opportunity of going to San Remo, which is on the Italian Riviera. It's right on the border of France. And I loved that area to death. And when I was there, I had the chance to open a city called Imperia, which had never seen missionaries before. And then I served in Lake Como. And then down to Milan. I had the chance to serve in the mission office. And then I finished in Florence, in Firenze. So in Italy, it is honestly probably, I mean, I've lived in America my whole life, but it's the biggest melting pot I've ever seen. I know, personally, I taught people from 63 different countries. And you meet people from everywhere. There's a lot of Africans, because Italy is one of the most southern parts of Europe. And so a lot of Africans and Muslims come up and they immigrate there. A lot of South Americans, and it's such a neat experience because you get to meet all these people and talk to them about the gospel. Africans in particular are always really excited to talk about the gospel, and you feel that love for Jesus Christ that they have, which is so amazing. They're definitely interesting to work with because they come from a different world than we do. They have different traditions than we have, and when we think of like how to make plans in the day, that's not what they think. That's like not how they were raised. But they're fantastic disciples of Jesus Christ, and they will always stop to talk to you about the gospel, no matter what they're doing. They see men of God, and they go and talk to them. And it's a faith builder to meet people from poor conditions like this, or meet people from different cultures, and to see how much the gospel means to them. South Americans also, I'd say South Americans are a big part of the church there in Italy, because a lot of them come from Ecuador, from Argentina, from Peru, already knowing about the church and already being members and bishops and stake presidents back in their own countries. And then they come to Italy and they really help the church grow. And they all, even if they're not members of the church, Peruvians that you meet on the street, they always know what the Mormon church is. And so it's a neat, I think it's a really helpful thing for Italian culture, because this melting pot brings the church into the center stage. And you know what? And everyone is, you can talk about the gospel to anyone. There's a lot of Muslims there. I know initially when I went there to Italy, it was discouraged to talk to them about the gospel. It was kind of dangerous, especially because a lot of people that practice Islam, they are unsafe. They can't convert safely to another religion without their family harming them. But as it went on, the rules kind of changed, and the church came out with different policy. And I've had some of the most great and most productive conversations about the gospel with Muslims. And I think the number one thing is if we listen to what they say, they listen to what we say, and we find common ground. Because I think as missionaries, we're often really eager to just go right in and say, I'm right, you're wrong, almost. And like in different words, obviously, but that's kind of what we say. But the true way, and the way that like Jesus Christ would go around doing it too, is to listen and to really focus on how we feel about the person and what we want to do for them, and that was such a big thing that Muslims taught me, is as we listen, they listen, and we find common ground. But if we don't listen, they will not listen, because why listen to someone that's not listening to you?
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the time wasn't well established in that part of Italy. So my mission covered Sicily and the bottom part of the boot, the Calabria and part of the Puglia. So it's just the bottom part in Sicily, so the southernmost part. And it's very Catholic, very traditional. And Italians, when they say that they're Catholic, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're religious or anything. They more identify with Catholic as part of their culture. So when they say they're Catholic, it's as if they're saying I'm Italian. And not necessarily that I belong to their church, but that I'm Italian, therefore I'm Catholic. And that's why I can't hear your message, even though we think you're nice boys. And so yeah, lots of, it may be 1 out of 10 you would find a non-Catholic. And there's some other Christian religions, but predominantly Christian and almost 100% Catholic. And the church was small out there. I think there was only one area in the northernmost part of my mission that actually had a stake. The rest of them were just branches and districts. And so branches were real spread out. A lot of times members had to travel from distant areas. And so it was, it was a struggle to bring people in, and but a lot of times people pity Italian missionaries and European missionaries because the conversion rate and the statistics aren't as high as other missions. But I had a phenomenal mission and I loved it, and I consider myself a very successful missionary, and it can be tough, but I just talk to everybody, and I I got good at it and I got to enjoy it. And so I had a great amount of success and enjoyed it. It's interesting how southern Italy and northern Italy seem to have comparisons and some similarities between the southern U.S. and the northern U.S. and that the southern regions in both instances are both heavily reliant on historically like agricultural stuff and farming, and in the north they're more industrial and more academic. And so anyway, I was in the traditional country area, and I think they were a little bit more open to gospel discussion and more humble than other areas, because the Italians in my area, the southern Italians, would describe the northern Italians as being cold, rigid, closed off type of people. And they'd say, but down here in the South, we're warm and we're friendly, we're nice to everybody, and we'll talk to you. And I'm sorry that I can't come to your church, but or read your book. But they would always describe themselves as being more caloroso, is what they'd say, and just kind and friendly. And so I don't know. I don't have experience with what it was like in the northern missions, but ours was quite, I'd say, casual, traditional, and slower pace of life. And so
church history in Italy, one main name that you might know, or everyone will know, is Lorenzo Snow. Was the first one in there. He converted a Valdesi family, which is one of the religions there. That's actually super similar to what we believe in. And they have a couple cathedrals in Italy. They're not as popular anymore, but and so Lorenzo Snow's there. If you ever serve in the city of Torino, you can actually take a day hike up to the mountain where he dedicated it's called Mount Brigham, actually. Yeah, where it's dedicated. He dedicated Italy for proselyting, which came quite a bit afterwards, though. As far as other big facts, the church in Italy is actually growing a lot. When my 2 years there, we doubled the baptisms. We broke records as far as people converting. They're really being receptive to it. And the cool thing about Italians is that since they're really social, a lot of the times they don't really mind telling their friends. You just have to bug them a lot about it. It's just they get so caught up with other things that they just forget. So that's probably what. But they just created, I think, 2 more stakes, which is really awesome. You have the Florence stake that was created, and another stake in Milan. And most of the groups now are wards. But you will serve in branches, and you will probably have the opportunity to either be a branch president, if you're an elder, or also baptize in the ocean, because not everyone has baptismal fonts. So that's a really unique experience as well. As far as other little things about Italy, you will hear dialects, especially if the further south you get into the mission. Of course, in the Rome mission, but in the Milan. In Florence, you'll hear the Florentine accent and dialects. They're really big on their own vocabulary, so you'll end up learning new words and new ways to say things in every area you go. I got to serve in many cities, so I got to pick up a lot of different kinds of dialects, and so that's something cool. You'll also learn about the main dish as far as food in each one of these regions. They're really proud of it. There's this one thing that just keeps on coming up everywhere. And in every area that you serve, that's just similar to that just one place. Every time you have a meeting, everything else could change, but you'll have that one thing that's always there for the most part. The Rome Temple, it's taken a long time because Italians, I guess that's something else. I don't know, this might come under a culture question, but they take their time when they work. There's no rush at all. In fact, I think they only work like 4 to 5 hours a day, and the rest they have to take off or it's just bad. They get cranky. But yeah, you have the Rome Temple, and as far as the church goes, there's some strong members. I guess the one really cool thing, though, this is probably the thing that impressed me the most. Italians, once they grab a testimony or they have a testimony, since they're so stubborn of people, they don't let that go, which is really nice. Italians are harder to baptize, to help them develop their testimonies, mostly because they're so critical and like they pick at everything. But if you're able to help them realize what the Spirit's trying to tell them, they're the best. They're the anchors of everything. You will baptize a lot of foreigners that come into the country. But as far as like if you're able to get those Italians, those are rock solid members that usually carry so much weight, but that they're willing to do it. So that's really cool about it. As far as like the quality of members that you have in Italy. So
Rome just became two stakes. It is definitely growing, and there's the temple being built there. And ever since the temple was announced, there's a different spirit in the land. It's really incredible to see how the members have stepped up to show their gratitude for temple coming, and they've become more involved and willing to be assistants to the missionaries and helping in whatever way they can to find people who are searching for the truth. The church amount of members depends on the city. Rome, there are wards, and then when you leave Rome and go to Naples and in Sicily or Sardinia, there are a lot of more branches than wards. Some branches will consist of 10 people, 6 people, and then you go to like Rome 2 where there's 200 at least. So it really depends. I would say Rome is the strength of where the members are. In Rome, they have good priesthood leadership. They have a good number of priesthood holders, but that dwindles as you go onto the islands. A lot of missionaries, a lot of elders can expect to serve as either a branch president or a counselor in some of the smaller branches on their missions. The sisters, they help the ward mission leader. If it's a city where there are no elders, then the sisters become very involved in helping the branch president with the work. But generally, if there are elders, then the elders will take it upon themselves to delegate what needs to be done. The sisters, in that case, just do their missionary work. I would say every missionary should always be prepared to be called upon to give a talk. Most of the members in Italy used to be Catholic. And so they're just coming from that background to becoming a Latter-day Saint. So all of their friends and sometimes all of their family members are still Catholic. So there's a lot of understanding between the two different religions. I found that I never felt threatened or disrespected by a Catholic for their beliefs. In teaching, I found that it was easier to teach to that person's understanding when I taught first, when I first found our commonalities. So one thing I would suggest to missionaries would be, when you're teaching someone, to keep in mind, what does this person who comes from a Catholic background believe about God or about the atonement? They have different beliefs. Even they do believe in God, but they see him differently. We see him as someone that we can approach in prayer, and someone who will really respond to us and who has one-on-one time with us. Catholics don't see that. They pray through saints because God is too great to approach one-on-one. So coming with that understanding of how they perceive God and principles of the gospel that we do have in common, it's easier to understand why they believe what they believe and why they do what they do, when you keep that in mind. So teaching at the MTC, a lot of missionaries will come in and say, when I got my mission call, people were like, oh, that's going to be a hard mission. And it's always confused me, because serving in Italy, you see baptisms. I have a huge testimony of what an effect your attitude is, and how your attitude about it affects the success you'll see as a missionary. It was interesting that when I was in Italy, there was the Rome mission and the Catania mission, and a couple months into my mission, the boundaries changed. And the Rome mission, we were a baptizing mission. And when the boundaries changed, our mission president decided to send half of us down to Catania and half of the Catania missionaries up to Rome. And when I got to Catania, I was shocked to hear that most of my companions from the Catania mission hadn't seen a single baptism. And I asked, and they said, we're here to strengthen the members. And in the Rome mission, we were here to baptize. So it was all just how we perceived what our purpose was. Mm-hmm. And with the mixture of the missionaries, both missions, the one mission became a baptizing mission because it was all our attitude. And missionaries are called to baptize, and with that attitude, you will baptize. There are lots of Catholics. Yes, it is the Catholic capital of the world, but there are so many humble people who are honestly seeking for the truth. And God loves Italians just as much as he loves anyone else, and he really, this is his work, and he will direct obedient missionaries who are seeking to follow Spirit to those who are seeking to find the truth.